everyone, Alpha Soul here, and welcome to another video. Man, this is an exciting video because it is really all about the Ashes of Creation map that was released. Now, I personally love theory crafting. I love looking at different things and kind of coming to, my own kind of conclusions of what it means, and it's always a fun time. Now, the map was actually quite a surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be released within the creative director's letter, but it was a pleasant surprise, and it did contain a couple of leaks that were confirmed by Steven to be actually leaks. He didn't intend them to be there, such as the gateways, etc., but we'll cover that within this video. So this video is really going to be all about talking about that map, and again, we're just having some fun here, theory crafting and going over these things. Now, one stark reminder before I get started, and that this is, it's Alpha 1. That we're still in Alpha, we're still talking about Alpha, and in an Alpha for an MMO and for games period, major systems and things can change. This map can change, anything can change, and again, this is just theory crafting based on some things that we know and things of that nature. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's start off with some things we know. We're going to call this section Facts We Know. Now, a lot of these facts that I actually got were either out of my personal knowledge, but I wanted to go ahead and sort them, so most of them are actually pulled out of the Ashes of Creation wiki that was gone up. And the wiki has links directly to where Steven said this or where Intrepid said this, so they're all cited for where you can actually find it. So let's start with some basic facts. The first fact: the map will be able to house 10,000 concurrent players, right? Large number of players, all at the same time, basically. Second fact, the map is roughly 480 kilometers square feet, the map is roughly 480 square kilometers, all right? So that's roughly the world size at launch. It's give or take around there. Now, when they say world size, it does not include the Underrealm. Like what you see here on the screen is the overall world, but it doesn't include the Underworld. And what they're not counting, I believe, within this particular case, 480 square kilometers, is the landmass. It's not counting this whole map that you see here, it's the landmass, all right? And that's gonna become very important as we kind of go along. Point number 3, I'm not sure if you can see it on this map, but you will see it a little bit more clearly in a bit. Circles on the map are the location of the divine gateways. So there are 4 divine gateways that are there, and those divine gateways we will be able to choose from as players of where we'll exit. So you see there's essentially 2 on each of the major continents, whatever there is. And then you also have the diamonds on the map, which represent the first player settlements. There are 8, and they're supposedly divided by race. Now, there was a quote where Steven had commented, and hopefully I'll have that up here, but he had confirmed that this was the case and what to expect from the diamonds and the circles, all right? This also does not include the Tulnar because they're kind of a mix. I don't believe that they have a starting town, but again, we'll see what actually happens. Fifth point. Fifth point is there are none there, but points of interest will also be around and located on the map, right? Next thing, more than likely, you will not be able to go, east to west and north to east. In other words, I don't believe that the world will function like a full globe. And I think I can't find a specific quote for this, but I believe Steven had mentioned something about the fact that it would make it harder to, for example, expand the world if you wanted to expand in the future, if you try and did something like that. It's very similar to some other MMOs, so more than likely we'll probably see like the edges, cut off, if you will, at some point, and you not being able to go past a certain point. So it would be east to west, north to south, but it would not be like a globe and overlapping where you can go around and around and around. And that's, again, just speculation for it. And then the final is that, remember, there are 103 nodes with 5 castles that are sprinkled about, and the castle nodes themselves are not included with that 103 node count. The 5 castles themselves are their own, and each castle has 3 nodes itself. So there are 15 total castle nodes, and those overlap with the entire world as well too. So yeah, that's where it is. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and move on to map comparisons. Alright guys, let's go ahead and move on to map comparisons. Now, before I get started, I just want to comment on one very important thing. Before I do this comparison, understand that the movement is going to be different in the MMO versus what you see in the current Battle Royale, right? If you watch things like the Mayoral Caravan System walkthrough, the link is down below. If you see other videos of the MMO versus the Battle Royale, and Steven's actually confirmed this as well too, there's not going to be leaping, fast moving, etc. The pacing is different. The Battle Royale is meant to be a fast-paced thing, whereas obviously the MMO is a lot more slowed down as compared to that. So don't go in there thinking these comparisons are completely accurate, as, you know, even if you take a space as the Battle Royale and you look at how you would move through, it would take you longer to move through the Battle Royale in the MMO, Battle Royale area in the MMO versus what you saw in the Battle Royale. So, you know, no leaping, fast moving, things like that, of that nature, to go ahead and, you know, do those things. So yes, so keep that in mind as we go through these comparisons. So let's go ahead and start with the very first one that you see here on the screen, and that you've been seeing on the screen, and that is the entire map. Now, I did some counting, looking at it, and the entire world here appears to be a 24 by 34 map, which is roughly about 816 square kilometers if we're looking at it like that. Now again, it could be way off, it could be off on something, but I'm just going by what we know. So it's 816 square, which kind of fits with Steven's original statement, which was that there'd be 480 square kilometers of world, and I think he meant land mass by that, and you can see from the map that that's roughly, what 480 out of 816 would be. So for that, we're just gonna take that as fact and as is, all right? So we'll keep it right there. And then we'll move on to the second one, the Alpha Zero map. Now here we see the Alpha Zero map. The Alpha Zero map is a 4x4 map. It is roughly 16 kilometers squared. Now, many people didn't actually get to see the Alpha Zero map, so this may mean very little to a lot of us here, including me. I did not see the Alpha Zero map, but this would be the rough size of it compared to the world. So there's not much I can say about it because I obviously did not play the Alpha Zero, and I can go off of testimonials of other people there, but this is roughly the size compared to that. So let's move on to the Battle Royale. And yeah, the Battle Royale. All right, so this next one that we see here is a comparison versus the original Battle Royale map. Now, what I mean by original Battle Royale, for those of you who don't know, there are two Battle Royale maps. This is not Forest of Orinthia, or the one that you can currently see and play basically in the Battle Royale if you launch it up right this instant. This is the original Battle Royale, and you can see videos of where I had, that actually showing, within the game, basically. So if you look at previous videos that you'll see the original Battle Royale. That is what I am talking about when comparing this. That one was roughly 6.25 square kilometers. That is what we're looking at here. So you can see it's a pretty small chunk of the world, which is pretty, I guess you could say, good to see. And it kind of gets me wondering, how far will you be able to see on the horizon, just because I'm kind of trying to remember how far you could technically see across the map, and I'll have to go over some of my previous videos like I did before, but you can see it's a chunk. It's what it is there. All right, so let's move on to the next one. And yeah, let's touch on the next one. All right, so the next one is the Alpha 1 map comparison against the world. And you can see here, it is a pretty large chunk of what it is. And I was looking around and saw the comment after I did, the sizing of it, looked at it and realized, okay, that's about 25% of the world. I actually went and looked up and saw that it was actually quoted that the size of Alpha 1 would be about 25% of the world that you could play in. So that chunk that we see right here on the screen is about 25% of the landmass, so it kind of fits in everything that they've said so far as how big Alpha 1 would be versus the rest. So, kudos on them. It's roughly about 25%. So we can see here we'll be playing a considerable amount of size within Alpha 1, but it will by all means not be the world size. The world size will be much, much, much larger than that, and it'll include probably more oceans and everything like that you can traverse. So yes, it's 25% of the landmass, but we're also trying to factor in and starting to look at sea size and, those oceans that connect the continents and stuff that you'll be able to traverse. And man, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, that's the Alpha 1 map comparison. All right, now this last one, this is a big assumption. You can see here, it's node size speculation. Now, the reason why it's a huge assumption is for a number of reasons. One, we know that while there are 103 nodes, we know that they are all more than likely not going to be the same size, right? This is just taking under the assumption that, okay, let's just say 103 were all the same size. How big would they roughly be, right? So yeah, it wouldn't be a perfect square that you see here on the screen, but again, just having a little fun with this. 480 kilometers squared of lands, we divide that by about 103, and we end up with an area of about 4.7, let's just say roughly 5 kilometers square. When we think about 5 kilometers square, what this actually looks like, if you saw the beginning of this video, it does look like a rough comparison to a smaller version of the original Battle Royale maps. Not too much smaller, but roughly about the same size, and that would be the average size of a node. Again, they could be smaller, they could be bigger. It all depends on what stage the node is in, etc., 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 right? And again, more crucially, they're all not perfect squares like that and things of that nature. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the final one. So with that, let's just go on and move on to race speculation. All right, so this next part is the race speculation section. Now, this was probably the most fun that I've had kind of looking at these Ashes of Creation maps and trying to guess based on some of the lore, based on some of the things that we know where they would be. Now, again, this is just me speculating where I think they might land throughout the whole thing, right? Now, again, Stephen confirmed. There's a link through the screenshot. If I hadn't posted it then, I'll post it now to you of what each of the circles and the diamonds mean. The diamonds on the circles and the diamonds on the western continent a little bit harder to see, but if you get a better map, and hopefully you can see them in this video a little bit more clearly, you can actually see where they actually are, and they represent the race, starting settlements, if you will, and the 4 circles represent the portals. All right, now there's a very important assumption that I'm making here, which could be completely wrong for that matter, and that is, for each race will be linked to the same portal, if you will, right? So what I mean by that is, if we're looking at the Aela Humans, right, you've got the Valoon and the Kalar, that they would be both coming out of going into the same portal and heading to their respective starting settlements if you're looking at it by race. So what I'm saying by that is, you wouldn't see a Kalar, an Aela Human, one of the Valoon on the east and the Kalar on the west. You would see them close together. So that's the assumption that I'm making, and you can see from the screenshot I've got where my speculation is of where they'll end up, right? So I'll touch on each one individually, but you can see here generally where I'm putting the races and where I think they'll go. We've got the Orcs in the northwest, we've got the Humans in the southwest, the Elves in the southeast, and the Dwarves in the northeast. Tulnar, of course, do not have an area, all right? So let's start with the Kaivek Orcs. All right, so let's start with the Kaivek Orcs. There are 2 sub-races for the Kaivek, the Renkai and the Vek, right? Now, this is a blown up picture of the northwest portion. You can see I've labeled where the starting settlements I think will actually be. So yeah, the 2 sub-races, again, the Vek and the Renkai. Now, this is mainly based off of the Vek and the description that we know of the Vek. We know that they're stargazers, and more importantly, there was speculation that their starting racials would have to do with sea navigation, right? Now, this is the only starting settlement that is actually bordering the sea. And that combined with, I think it was mentioned Renkai were like plains or something like that, although I don't have a quote for that is why I put them here. You can see that the northern, or the Renkai, are more closely to like steppes and like you know, things of that nature, almost Indian-ish or American Indian-ish, if you will, on, you know, the picture of where they would appear to be, whereas the Southwest Vec are bordering a sea, you know, where they would be seafaring, islanding, and, you know, good at navigation and things of that nature. So that's kind of why I have them here. Now, this is the most shaky, you know, along with the dwarves, and we'll get to them, you know, in a bit of some of my reasoning, but you'll see why in a bit. Let's move on to the humans. Now, the Aela Humans have one of the more interesting spots as well. They are actually right up in the southwestern portion of the map. And what made me think that the Aela Humans will be focused here is mainly based on the Valoon. The Valoon are actually the race that I will be playing come Ashes of Creation. They're a desert nomadic tribe, and they kind of are not a desert nomadic, they're trade focused, and they're mainly located within the desert. And there is only one starting settlement within the desert that's there, the Valoon. Now, the Kalar, which are located, as you can see here on the map, on the northwest side of the map. You can see they're between two rivers. It's kind of like a riverland type area, and you can, you know, kind of see some of the other artwork here, you know, that I've put here on the side as well too. Is you can see like what is it, like Kalar influences coming in on the map. So like there's many towns that I've seen have been surrounded by like grass plains and stuff like that. Again, just speculation, but this is kind of the picture of what I might imagine it being, or, you know, seeing like, if you will. In fact, the castle that we saw in the Battle Royale is what I would imagine would be in the Kalar, you know, realm, if you will, so to speak. So yeah, that's what we've got there. Let's move on now to the Pyrian Elves. All right, so this next one that we see here are the Pyrian Elves. Now, I'm fairly confident that the elves will be located in this southeastern area on the eastern continent. What I'm not as confident is what you see here as far as which one would be which, whether Empyrean would be the one on the eastern one or the Pyri would be the northwestern one. The reason for that is what we know about the Pyri elves, for example, is that they are more woodland and the Empyrean are more structured, right? It looks like the forests are deeper as you go onto the east side, but I have seen some of the and again, I'll have the screenshots here. I have seen some of the elven cities appear to be, or what would look like what would be an Empyrean city, surrounded by mountains, if you will, that are kind of in there. And that spot right there kind of looks like what it might look like, and kind of building within that structure. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy, but you know, that's in general, all these forested areas is where I would expect to see the elves actually appear here. Yeah. So I put Pyri smack dab in the middle of the forest there, and the Empyrean on the eastern side. All right, now final one, move on to dwarves. All right, we come to the last race, and that is the Dunzenkell Dwarves. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but there are two factions you can see here on there. We've got the Nikua, and we've got the Dunir. Now, this is the one that I have the most problem with, and compared with this and the Orcs, man, I'm torn. And the reason to understand that is what we know about the Nikua, right? So the reason why at first I was confident in the Dunzenkell Dwarves is what we know about them in general. We knew that they expanded throughout the northern mountains. We knew that they were the first race to get here. We knew that, you know, again, it said specifically expansion through the northern mountains that were there, right? So we know that from screenshots and pictures that we see here, that they were surrounded by the mountains. It's cold, it's white, and this is one of the only areas that has that as far as a starting, you know, area for the races. So it made sense to put the dwarves in the northeast for here. Where it doesn't fit, however, are the Nikua dwarves, right? The Nikua dwarves were dwarves that specifically did not like to be confined to the mountain. They like to explore around, and specifically there was a concept of Nikua island dwarves, right? Dwarves that could be found on islands. Now that might not be connected to this, but who knows what it may be. So what I was thinking is the Nakua would be in the southwestern portion of the Dunzenkell Dwarves area, and they might be located there. And they're away from the mountains, so to speak, not, with tradition, and, who knows what might actually happen there. Maybe we'll see Nakua Island Dwarves elsewhere around, but we'll see what actually happens. Yes, we know that they are the most ancient race, right? And so I saw a lot of these interesting rock formations that you can see there up there at the top that might have a Stonehenge-y type feel to them. I don't know. We don't know what they are. So it'll be interesting to figure out what's going on with there. But yeah, of the races, the two that I'm probably most confident in are the elves and the humans. The ones that I'm least confident in are the dwarves and the orcs, as you could potentially put Nakua on the western portion and, have it, there and stuff. So who knows what might actually happen from that. But I'm sticking with what I got here, and that's what I'm confident in. All right. So next, let's talk about some castle speculation, if you will. Let's go a little bit quicker. All right, so now we come to the castle speculation, right? This one will be relatively quick. You can see here where I think the castle location might be speculated. And let's run down some things. We know that there are 5 total castles. We know that the castles exist outside of the node structure, so they overlap all of the nodes in all 5 compared. We know that their influence each covers about 20% of the world, right? And then finally, we know of 2 castles specifically, and we know that Castle Minar, which is a Dunzenkell or a dwarven castle, is supposedly built into a cliff face, whereas Koran is the Aelan castle, which is, there's no information about that. So I kind of placed them over roughly what I imagine that they would be-ish in the area, and here's what it is. This is probably the most speculative part, because outside of that, we know nothing about where they would be located or that. But that's something, pretty fun to look. All right, guys, so let's wrap this video up. Let's wrap it up with my observations that I've noticed, right? One thing that sticks out at me is, there's lots of coast and water borders. I think seafaring and naval combat will be a lot bigger of a factor than I originally thought. There's a lot of space going on it, and I'm liking it a lot. 2, there's a lot of natural choke points and valleys that you can see here. Invading doesn't seem to be as simple as walking in a lot of cases, and the mainland seems to have a lot of options for caravan routes that you could potentially go through that could be really crazy. Like, for example, if you wanted to get somewhere from the southeast to the northwest, man, that would be quite a trick or a trip, going through many different zones, and that would be pretty interesting. Things like, let's see, the Stonehenge-ish features in the northeastern portion of the map. I'm curious to what those are. Interesting to point out. The area in the southwestern, which is kind of like, it looks like the highest mountains that are currently within Ashes of Creations, because you have the clouds that are appearing next to them, and that typically signals that, you've got really high mountains there. There's a lot of islands to go ahead and potentially have nodes on and to conquer. There's just a lot that are currently out there. Node boundaries. I'm curious as to how the node boundaries will work, to see if every single portion of the world will be covered, or there'll be parts of the ocean that are not part of a node that, don't have any landmass on them. I'm curious how that's going to actually work. I'm curious about that southeast area that has kind of like a different look and different trees that are located in that area. That'll be interesting to kind of explore. Almost looks a little bit Eastern type thing, but who knows what'll actually come of that. There's a vast snow area to the east. That appears to be the Forest of Arinthia. From what we know from the Battle Royale, that's kind of like the flavor that I guess that we can expect from that area, and it would kind of fit as it would be closer to the Elven area, but we'll see what actually happens with that. I like that archipelago of islands that's on the western portion, kind of between the 2 major landmasses on the west. That's would be pretty interesting to kind of colonize and go through that area. There are 5 significantly sized islands that I see kind of spread out. It'll be interesting to see who ends up conquering those islands. And then Yeah, so the Forest of Rinthia that they were talking about, I think they said that it was roughly 1/5 the map size, and that appears to be what 1/5 the map size would be, that large area that's located there. So that's pretty much it. That's my general observations, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed kind of going through and looking. Let me know what your speculation is for the map and the map that we've seen. Yeah, that's it, guys. You guys have a great day. Take care. Alpha Soul out.